Hey, I'm Randy Younger, New York City's go-to film enthusiast. Every week I dive deep into the world of cinema with special guests from the New York City film scene. Whether I'm interviewing industry insiders or comparing the latest releases, there's always something for every movie lover. Join me as I explore the magic of film and discover what makes these movies unforgettable. Hey guys, I'm Randy Younger, and this is another episode of Under the Radar, bringing movies and people together one frame at a time. And with me today, I have a wonderful panel of guest critics right here. We have Mr. Brian Smith. Welcome back to the show, sir.
Thank you very much. Glad to be back.
And Ernes Salic. How's it going, man?
It's going well.
First time on the show. How you feeling?
I'm feeling great. Thank you for having me. I appreciate the invite.
Anytime, man. So this is exciting.
Most
Got
definitely.
a lot to discuss.
Certainly.
So we're going to be doing a retro review of a movie from 1994. This movie is called Leon the Professional. It's directed by the French filmmaker Luc Besson, who's notable for his highly stylized action movies from the late 80s through the 90s. And Leon the Professional is from 1994. I thought it'd be only fitting to discuss it on its 30th anniversary. So, gentlemen, I saw this movie for the first time many years ago, around the time when it came out. I was a little young when it came out, and I didn't really appreciate it at the time. I rewatched it last night, and I was really blown away. Like, everything that was happening on screen was impressive to me. It was the visuals, it was the performances, with the writing. You've got, Jean Reno as the lead. He plays a hitman who lives a very lonely life. He basically encounters this young girl in his apartment building, played by first timer at the time. It's Natalie Portman, 12 years old, I believe. And basically the two of them form this bond in this apartment building. She wants to be a hitman too, and it's really just about the kind of like a weird father-daughter dynamic, bordering on romantic, a little creepy. But,
at times.
Yeah. But and that kind of mirrors real-life events, which we'll get into in a moment.
Oof.
But Ernest, since it's your first time, what were your thoughts on Leon the Professional?
Man, first thing I want to say is it's aged gracefully. It has. For a 90s flick, it's aged gracefully.
Right.
I remember my first time seeing it. It was actually like a black blank VHS tape. Didn't know what was on it. You're a kid.
Right.
You're just fooling around, putting in random tapes.
Right.
And I stumbled upon it, and after seeing the beginning, had to watch it, especially as a kid. And you telling me you saw it when you were quite young as well.
Right.
What were your thoughts when you were seeing it? Probably the same as mine as a kid.
Yeah, it was a little intense at the time.
Definitely.
Very violent movie.
Yeah.
You got bullets flying. You've got Gary Oldman chewing up the scenery as the psychotic, corrupt DEA agent who is the highlight of this movie, in my opinion. We're going to get to him a little bit later as well. But as a kid, it totally went over my head. I wasn't really into it at the time, which was kind of weird because I did like certain action movies of that era, like True Lies, for example.
Another good one.
Yeah, this one, for a kid, it just felt a little cold. And I couldn't really identify with Jean Reno's character. I wanted to, but I couldn't. But as I saw it last night, it basically revitalized my appreciation and made me really just love the movie. But Brian, how about you, sir? The Leon the Professional, thoughts overall?
I remember seeing this. I think I have a few years on you guys. I saw this actually in college. I didn't see it in the theater, but a friend of mine, I think, had the Laserdisc. That's how.
Nice.
That's how much I'm.
You're not dating yourself.
Yeah, exactly. No, not at all. Yeah, a friend of mine bought the Laserdisc, and I had like a movie watch party at his house, and I was like blown away by it. I remember seeing the trailer for it and some of the clips on like maybe Siskel and Ebert or something like that, and just immediately I was struck by Natalie Portman's performance. Such a young performer at the time,
right?
And it was just like you could tell she had star quality just right away. It was just especially the famous door scene where she's like asking to be let in, like your heart breaks for her, and then she's just this captivating, young character handling some very intense themes. With age comes just a little familiarity. There was a film called Gloria by John Cassavetes in the early '80s that Leon may have the same, Professional may have the same similar premise. They sort of go off on different tangents, but the general what starts it off, what kicks it off, that relationship between the older character and the child. Very similar, very similar. So I recommend Gloria, by the way, if you haven't seen that.
And it's also shot in New York.
Shot all in New York,
Love
yeah,
it,
at a
love
lot
it.
of places, even where I used to grow up. So it was it was cool to see like my neighborhood there, especially, and also in the professional. There's some areas that I recognize. Yeah, I love that. There's nothing like that authentic New York feel as a New Yorker, to see that on screen and shot in a very. It's shot in almost a very French way, there's archways and there's streets that are just filmed in a certain way that's you can tell is not bringing an American sensibility which I really appreciate, and also the score and the music and everything about it is very French.
That's I believe it's Eric Serra who did the score.
Yeah,
here.
yeah, and he did La Femme Nikita, which I understand you have not seen.
I know, it's on my list. It's on my list.
Yeah,
But,
yeah.
And also he did Goldeneye, which was a year after this.
Okay, yeah, I could hear that. Yeah,
And in his score, you kind of hear this interesting instrumentation. You hear almost like sleigh bells.
It's kind of cold. It's cold, but it works with the character. It works with the main character, and there's it's a great score. It's very European, I want to say, but it has that sound to it that's just very cold and unfeeling to sort of reflect the character. But it gets more emotional as it goes on, which I really appreciate. So.
And there is actually a shot that I think you would consider French, where they're it's from a distance, kind of blurry. They're walking down the street.
Absolutely. She's got the plant.
She's got the plant in her arm.
That shot right away. I was like, this is not my New York, but it's shot. It is New York. I know exactly with that space. I think
it looks so good.
Yeah. There's just so many moments that just feel different.
European.
It's very New York, but it feels different. And really, I love how the city's shot in that way. So yeah.
Ernest, what are your thoughts on the visuals of Leon?
Definitely interesting, and the takeaway, of course, put the violence to the side. Like Brian was saying, we're all from New York, and seeing certain lanes and alleyways and streets you're familiar with, it certainly helps with the immersion. And I guess for others, it helps with the immersion of the idea of New York. You know what I mean? Overall, the cinematography is pretty cool, man. There's some angles where you think won't work, like for particularly, I'll say the apartment scene, right at the end and such.
Okay.
Right, when he's planking up. I don't want to give too much away for people who maybe haven't seen it.
Appreciate that.
But it's a scene that gets you thinking, and it catches you by surprise, which is something I feel like is a bit of a lost art today in terms of angling in movies in general. Today.
Because the interior shots, I don't know were those actually in that building, or that was probably on a soundstage. What do you think?
I was convinced that they shot a lot of the hallway scenes and things. They that looked pretty authentic, and the lobby, a lot of it looked pretty authentic, but. If you said it was a soundstage, I'd believe that. But I think a lot of it felt real.
Or the interior. I don't want to be I'm not doing spoilers.
There's high angle shots. There's high angle shots during the opening, the scene and stuff like that.
There's also a great scene in a men's room in the DEA building in Center Street.
Yes.
Which was very tense. I'm not going to reveal the plot details for that scene, but I think that lends itself to the whole film, and it really creates this tension that you don't really see in a lot of movies, especially not today. A little bit, I guess, in the 90s, but this movie really, I love the look of this all the way through. And I want to talk about Natalie Portman. Then we'll get to the great Oldman.
Oh,
but
legend.
you've got Natalie Portman. She's about 12 years old here, and she is already showing that she's a movie star, even as a kid. That's insane to do that.
Yes, very talented.
Yeah, and I loved her chemistry with Jean Reno, and I thought it was a much better performance than, say, Attack of the Clones, but that's a different story.
That's not her fault.
Yeah, I wouldn't.
That's
say
true.
so.
That's true. Good actress, bad movie.
Well, it can be argued when you see the new Star Wars movies today. Again, another note, another time.
Right.
Another time.
Right. But yeah, and Jean Reno, fantastic actor, French actor. He's been around for a while now.
Yeah.
And I've loved him. I actually liked him in the Pink Panther reboot. That was pretty decent.
I forgot he was in that for a second. Yeah. Now that you mentioned it, wow. Okay.
He has a new movie out now where it's about. I think it's something he befriends a penguin. He's very versatile.
Wow.
I think I did see a trailer. For
Yeah. But I think he's always kind of in Godzilla. He's always kind of like this, this like very quiet, like stoic character.
Definitely.
Mission Impossible, I think.
Yes,
Yeah,
Mission
yeah.
Impossible 1, which Leon the Professional paved the way for.
The famous wire sequence, I think. When
Oh, he was in that?
Yes,
I
he
believe
was.
he's the one holding the wire, right?
Yes,
He's
he
like,
was.
and he slicks
With
the
Tom
wire.
Cruise, it was him.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, he gets around.
Yes. Yeah. But I think primarily because of Leon the Professional that he was even like considered for the role in Mission Impossible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can see that,
Because I think before this, he was fairly unknown, or
True. Mostly French movies.
Right.
You know, it's where he stems from, and I agree with you that he's very talented because his style of acting translates very well, even from French cinema to our own.
Yeah.
And that says a lot because it doesn't always work.
Right.
But in his case, it definitely shined through.
yeah, for
You know?
sure.
Especially having to start as like the stoic, silent type, and then having to sort of become this paternal character.
Yeah.
He himself said it was one of the loneliest roles he's ever had to do.
Oh, wow.
Because, he prepared himself so he can look the part, look lonely, look like
Right.
he has nothing going on in his life,
Right.
but also very unassuming. You look at him as a
Yeah.
character and you think he's not a hit man.
Right.
Never.
Right,
He looks more like a janitor as such,
Yeah. And I love his style. He's got a
Yeah.
great look. His wardrobe is very unique.
Yes.
With the beanie and the long coat and the short
Yeah.
pants, like at the ankle.
glasses.
It's a very cool look, I must say.
Yeah, well put together.
I don't think I could pull it off, but whatever. Oh, My Penguin Friend. It came out, I think, a few months ago, and it looks interesting to me. It's Jean Reno befriending a penguin. How can you go wrong?
I'm willing to give it a shot. If
Yeah.
the penguin wears the hat,
Yes.
I'm willing to give it a shot.
For sure. Oh, and also another movie that kind of fell through the cracks, Just Visiting, where he plays, basically it's him and this other guy. They're two, they live in the Middle Ages, and somehow they got transported magically to modern day Manhattan and befriend Christina Applegate. And basically it's kind of like a romantic thing between her and one of them, I think. But
Did AI write that?
no, it sounds ridiculous, but it actually happened. Came out in 2001.
Okay.
I just really know about it because of the score. It's a very good score by the great John Powell, who he did Shrek and Chicken Run and
Oh, I see.
and
Okay,
all these
okay,
animated
okay.
films.
Okay.
But back to Leon. So the second portion of this episode, I want to dedicate to the great English character actor, Mr. Gary Oldman, ladies and gentlemen. This guy, he made it big. I mean, he started out in theater in the late 70s and kind of just evolved into film acting. I think his first really well-known role was Sid Nancy, where he played Sid Vicious. And since then, he's been just taking all these roles, character roles mostly. He's been described as an actor's actor and the true chameleon because he really immerses himself in the role, in the performance. I think the pinnacle might be Bram Stoker's Dracula, where he plays Count Dracula.
In many different forms. Too.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Actually,
Yeah.
he's
Exactly.
in the makeup too. I think he's wearing a lot
Yeah.
of the
Yeah,
prosthetic
yeah.
makeup, so,
Definitely.
So he's been around. He's been doing characters for well over 30 years now. He won the Oscar in, I think it was 2018 for Darkest Hour, where he played Winston Churchill. Fantastic performance under a ton of makeup to make him look like Churchill. And it worked. Not because of the makeup, but because of his performance. He's just that good. And
I saw like I think there's a tribute meme online. I can't remember if he just had a birthday recently, but it was just all of his roles, in
Yeah.
like a grid,
Yeah.
and you see how different they are. Like it's like wow, true
I think,
romance.
did you
and-
post that?
I might have. I might have because it's. I love to see that. I love to see the body of work. Another one I would love to see get honored like that is like Tim Curry. Someone who
Nice.
brings like all the different roles in different ways. But Gary Oldman, for our contemporary audiences, I think who else is like that? Like Lon Chaney, maybe, or someone who could
Yeah.
like appear and just immerse themselves in their roles.
But in our generation, he's the pinnacle of that.
Yeah. They're all so different. They're just
Yeah.
and he just brings 110%.
Sometimes I don't even know what the real Gary Oldman looks like. I guess
There's even a joke. I think there's. I might be butchering this. There's something like you wake up and you're Gary Oldman in The Professional or something. You go to sleep and wake up and you're suddenly Gary Oldman as the character of The Professional.
Right,
Something
right.
like that. But it was just like it's like he just wakes up as the character.
I think his character in Leon is the closest you'll get to what he actually looks like, especially in the 90s. Because now he's got the mustache, kind of the Jim Gordon look has kind of stayed.
Perpetual.
Yeah,
Right,
that's
right.
that's like that's the modern day Oldman is the glasses and the mustache, I'd say. But yeah, he's done so much so much great work.
He was in a film. Was it Romeo is Bleeding from the 90s, I think, or 80s and 90s?
Was it or are you thinking of Rosencrantz and Guildenstern?
I think check out. I think it was Romeo is Bleeding with Lena Olin.
Romeo is Bleeding.
Am I wrong?
Let us see. All right, so 1993. That was kind of a busy year for him also because he did True Romance that year.
Right.
Great performance as a Rastafarian drug lord.
Yeah.
It's like ridiculous.
Once again, proving his versatility.
Exactly. I didn't even know it was him. It's like,
No, I
Yeah.
didn't either.
it's like, this is the guy from Air Force One?
I would
What?
have never guessed. Never would have guessed.
Right?
No.
He was in Romeo is
was him,
Bleeding.
yeah,
Oh my
yeah.
gosh.
I think
It's
Lena
an-
Olin's like a crazy hit woman or something, and she's
Oh my God.
she's tormenting him the whole time.
It's a neo-noir crime thriller. I'm sold already. I'm sold. Yeah, definitely. That's awesome. So yeah, another Luc Besson film that Oldman was the villain in, The Fifth Element. Really
Iconic.
Yes, thank you.
I'd say comedic villain.
He was hilarious in
Yeah.
that.
It's not one of my favorite movies, but you know,
Yeah.
I remember him being a standout. He's pretty funny, and
Yeah.
the visuals were cool.
The visuals are amazing. Bruce Willis is the hero. He was kind of like John McClane in space.
Right.
But
That's the vibe
Was
I
a
got.
cat, was he a
Exactly.
cab driver? Was that his thing?
he was a cat, like
Yeah.
a floating
Flying
cab.
driver. Yeah.
Right. But he's
And-
also a retired special forces vet of some sort, if I
course,
remember.
That makes
He
sense.
ended up driving cabs after.
Yeah, it was kind of a simple story but set in the future.
Easy to follow.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I love that special all-purpose gun that Oldman has, his character. It's
A
got-
monstrosity.
yeah.
A monstrosity.
It was a cool prop. I wonder who has that now. Probably the producers or someone who worked on the set.
Speaking of Fifth Element, I read recently that Luc Besson, he wrote Leon the Professional while waiting for the Fifth Element to get picked up by a studio.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it took him, if I remember, 1 month to write Leon the Professional.
Wow.
Fifth Element was having trouble. A lot of studios were turning it down. They just couldn't see the vision.
Okay.
So in his frustration, he thought, let me just move on and write something else in the meantime. And that's when he came up with Leon the Professional.
Something
Wow.
simpler. Yeah.
Which also, Brian, you mentioned La Femme Nikita,
Mhm.
the French version, which
Yeah.
I also agree, Brian, should not be overlooked.
Right.
And I do feel it is superior to the American version, just off cinematography alone.
Hands on the score, I believe, though.
Which the
Point of no return.
yeah, thank you.
Off of the American release.
Yeah.
Actually that is an amazing score. It's got some great cues. But we're also going
Pretty
to talk
loud,
about.
but we can talk about that.
Yeah, that's another. Yeah. So yeah, back to Leon. This movie is it's great. The relationship between Matilda and Leon, it's creepy, but not. It could be creepier. So they do kind of toe this line of like what is appropriate, and I don't know. Do you think that's a choice by the screenwriters or the?
Well, Luke wrote it, right?
I believe he did.
He did.
He did,
wrote and
yeah.
directed. Yes.
Yeah. So it's a choice by the writer.
Right.
You know, and I'm basing my review on the American version. I haven't seen the full. I guess if there's a director's cut version, but in the American version, it toes a line. It toes a
Yeah,
line. But
yeah.
I mean, you know, she is playing the role with a maturity that's impressive for her age. But
Yes.
yeah, there's moments where you're like, what are we doing here?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I agree.
And you're like, okay, let's get, But
Yeah.
thankfully, it doesn't get too French. But it's
Right.
it's
Too French.
Well, okay. So here's real cringe territory. So the actual Besson, he had a relationship with a 15-year-old when he was 32,
Oh, I see.
and I don't know the laws in France, but I think that's allowed.
I see.
But obviously in America, it is totally it's not right, and it's. I mean, this is a classic example. We were talking on the way over here.
Yeah.
You got to separate the artist from the personal life, and even though it is kind of creepy in his real life, it did inspire a very good movie.
I mean, it kind of
No,
it
most
kind of
definitely.
blended into the art. A
Yeah,
little bit.
yeah.
You could say, it's
That's like the only good thing that came out of that relationship, basically.
I would go that far. I would say that, but I mean, I don't know the laws too much in France and stuff, but it's
No.
it's like we discussed this earlier. It's like it
Yeah.
might be a little problematic, but if we're speaking about the film, and especially La Femme Nikita, there's visual elements that lend itself well into watching. If you watch The Professional afterward, because La Femme came first, right? And then-
Yeah, that was 1990.
And the idea of the cleaner is like a thing that's part of
Victor
La Femme
the
Nikita.
Cleaner.
Yeah,
Yes,
and
absolutely.
they're like the most terrifying people you don't want to bring onto your job if you're an assassin. It means you really
And
effed up.
Jean Reno was a cleaner in La Femme Nikita,
Absolutely.
but under a different name.
Victor.
So
Okay, yeah.
I think the theory is that Leon is his brother, like his
I've
twin,
never heard of
Like
that.
a little
Yeah. like a doppelganger or a twin brother or something.
I know that
some
there's
kind
a
of-
nod in Leon when Matilda asks him, "What do you do?" and he says,
Cleaner.
Cleaner.
Right.
Right.
It's a
That
nod
that
to La Femme, of course.
yeah, that phrase I think came out of as far as I know, it pretty much came.
So
out
this
of
is,
that.
I guess you could say, this is almost an unofficial sequel.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's definitely. I think it's definitely in that world.
Yeah.
I'll
'Cause,
say spiritually, perhaps, because
yeah,
I know
yeah.
Luc Besson. He wrote it with Jean Reno in mind.
Right.
And when he presented it with him, presented the script to him, Jean Reno picked up immediately on it. He
Yeah.
understood where it came from and what his vision was.
Right.
And he also got, if I remember correctly, I hope I'm not misquoting this, he got a little emotional about it. That Luc Besson would like think so highly of him.
Oh wow,
That's
You know
cool.
what I mean?
that's cool. Yeah,
Nice.
that he saw him in that. Yeah, yeah.
Definitely.
Huh. Okay.
But yeah, the idea of the cleaner is that if he's on the job, you as the assassin, you as the trained assassin, did something really wrong, and they have to come in
It's
and
curtains.
clean up your mess.
Curtains.
Yeah.
It would have been cool to see some more of the montage of him teaching her how to clean.
Oh,
Yeah.
that was actually in the uncut,
right.
international cut, I believe.
Yeah.
They used to call it that. Now I don't think they refer to that anymore.
Yeah, they call it the longer cut.
The longer
Yeah.
That's what Luke said when he was asked about that. This is not a director's cut; it is just a longer cut. So that's good.
Do you,
Yeah.
do you think there's this is just me and my writer brain? Do you think there's a chance they could ever revisit this storyline with Matilda older and was that ever
They wanted to do
They
that.
wanted to do that, yeah.
But I think there were
Star Wars came in and took
Yeah,
took her away?
I think there were just issues, copyright issues. I'm not
Really?
sure. Yeah, I think they turned it into, I think Lucy, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, okay, yeah.
yeah,
He's,
they kind of like retooled it into a new movie.
I
Gotcha,
see,
yeah,
I
yeah.
see.
Because I would pay a lot of money just to see Natalie Portman
Natalie Portman
back.
as-
Well, not a
yeah.
lot of money, but a good amount.
They'll pay her a lot of money.
Yeah, they will.
Yeah,
Yeah. I think it's one of the highest paid actresses, right?
No, currently.
she's up there, yeah.
Currently.
Right. She's a
Yeah.
Star Wars
Absolutely.
princess.
Yeah.
Oscar winner, right?
Yeah.
I always
Also-
forget. I always forget.
She's
Also-
fantastic.
But well deserved. Yeah. I think there are just certain performers out there who, if you just cast them in a legacy sequel or something and just have that trailer pop up,
We
it's
know
like
it's
a
coming.
no-brainer. It's a no-brainer that
Yeah.
that would make some money, you know.
I'm surprised it hasn't happened already.
Yeah. Unless they have to do, it'll come full circle and remake Gloria with her as the middle age, you know.
I like that.
saving
Yeah,
a
we'll
child,
wait a
you know.
few years.
Yeah.
Well, it's certainly been happening recently, like movie sequels 30 years in the making
Yeah.
or so.
Oh gosh.
Yeah.
You know, so you never know, knock on wood, it could
I know.
happen.
If you heard it here first, if they haven't come up with it.
I know. God. On that topic, real quick, we just did Beetlejuice last week,
I see.
and not nearly as good as the first one.
Okay.
But it sort of holds a candle to it.
Okay.
And it's a fun movie, regardless.
Would you say it's a solid film?
Yeah, it is, like, reluctantly.
It was
you know?
watchable.
Yeah, it
was
was
watchable.
it was fun, but
see.
I wouldn't say it's a very good movie. It's just it's enjoyable. It is what it is, kind of situation, you know.
And you already discussed it, right?
Yeah, last week. Yeah, but if you have a thought right now,
Justice for Bob. That's all.
no,
I was quite angry.
they had this army of shrunken head men, which was adorable. They're so cute, and they don't talk. Their mouths are sewed shut. These big. It's really funny.
Well, he's from the first one. He's the
Yeah.
one he's sitting next to him.
I would
Yeah.
love to see just a TV series of just the Bobs and like subtitles.
That would be fun. Yeah, that'd be cool. You know, that was just. I felt that was the most unfair
Yeah.
element of the sequel. I liked it. It was fun. You know,
Yeah.
but it was
I think there were some missed opportunities.
I thought the
Always,
musical
they're
number was
always-
so
Yeah,
long.
yeah.
Always are.
I can't think of a sequel really that's come out recently that came out 30 years or so after the original. Yeah, it's tricky because how can you?
Tell me 30 years later. I was
Yeah.
there. I was in the theater. I saw that original.
It's
30 years later.
crazy.
Geez.
I had the VHS. It freaked me out when I was a little kid. Eventually, I did watch it. It wasn't so bad, but
You want to feel even older on a side note? I found this out today. It was that Ariana Richards, who played Lex in Jurassic Park, just
Right.
turned 45. I'm like, when did she catch up?
the same 45.
45, and Sam Neill was 45
When they shot that.
Jurassic
Yeah.
Park. So I was like, how did she even catch up? She's a child she's still a kid in my head.
She
She's
was-
like literally a few years
She was
younger
supposed
than
to
me.
be like 13, 14.
I didn't realize we were that close in age. I was like, I still saw her in her 30s. I'm like,
Yeah.
she's she's a peer.
I guess she
And-
feels the same way.
Yeah, it's like, where did time go? Yeah.
And the kid actor who played Tim,
he was
Jurassic-
in Bohemian Rhapsody, yeah, and
with
he
an
popped up in
English
some things.
accent. It
I
was
know,
very
yeah.
different.
Oh yeah, he's popped up in some things. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, legacy sequels, they could really go either way. Usually
Sure.
they go the wrong way,
Sometimes,
sadly.
Well, because I feel that's because sometimes they're forced.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, the studios, the machine behind these movies, they just somehow just, you know, they push them out just to make
That's
a profit.
It's sad.
You
and-
got to
and
follow the formula of the original. You got to. Here's the scene where they dance. Here's the thing.
Yeah.
That, you know, we got to.
It's a formula. There's no originality in it. There's no soul to the
Yeah.
movies.
Soul's important.
Yeah. Beetlejuice was fun,
Mm-hmm.
but it was just lacking that
edge.
that special factor. You know,
One of
it
my
just-
favorite sequels is, and especially in that vein, is
Yeah.
probably Adam's Family Values.
Okay.
Like,
Oh,
it
you just hit me in the heart there.
it
One of my
fires
guilty
on all,
pleasures.
It fires on
Yeah.
all cylinders. It's one of my favorite sequels.
Nice.
You got because it's meaner, it's snarkier. It's already established the characters. I know we could go on the
That's
whole
fine.
thing. But, you know,
Underrated in my opinion.
very
Underrated
underrated. It's got a
movie.
cult, and I don't think it was a hit.
It's considered better than the first one.
The first one was setting things up, but yeah,
Right.
but the second one was like, okay, you know the characters, now let's just get right to the humor, let's get right to the jokes. You
Right.
got Debbie with, Joan
That,
Cusack's
She's
Yeah.
underrated
fantastic.
performance.
She's the highlight of that movie.
She's
Hilarious.
underrated. I mean, she belongs with that family, but she's a killer, so it's like,
Right.
you know, but she's the villain, but she worked perfectly in that film, you know.
Right.
Yeah, she's too homicidal for her own good.
Right, right.
That's how I took it.
Paul, you need like a film like Beetlejuice or something needs like a
Right.
writer like Paul Rudnick wrote that, and he brought like such an edge that I don't think they would do that now.
That's
there's so
the
much-
term, edge.
Yeah,
It
there's so
lacked
much,
edge.
There's snarkiness in there. There's a real slam against like New York upper crust, which
Mm-hmm.
I appreciated. You know, it just he was coming
You know,
with his,
the original or the new one?
I think he wrote both, but he really fired on all cylinders in the second one. That was definitely his writing, his voice, and there's so much like upper crust, like, you know, takedowns in that movie that
Yeah.
I don't think we can get away with now. But it's if you watch that film,
Sadly.
especially with the Thanksgiving scene, there's so much stuff that's brought up in that film that comedy would not go there.
And
you know,
and you
without a committee. You
Yeah,
know what I mean,
I
this is
agree.
a
I can
singular
agree.
writer who brought all that stuff in there.
and McNichol, he's in that.
Peter
too.
McNichol, Christine Baranski, just
Yeah.
you know, I mean, there's they touch on racism, classism, everything in there, and it's just in this comedy, dark comedy, but
Yeah.
it's done so well. It's like it really sticks it to a lot
Yeah,
of
it's sophisticated. I
Yeah.
feel there's a sort of sophistication to
satires, satire, which is unfortunately kind of dying.
I
you know.
give
I
kudos.
agree.
I give kudos to director Barry Sonnenfeld.
Barry Sonnenfeld, his visual style.
He's got a
yeah.
great style, great touch.
Yeah.
And originally, you would think Tim Burton would take that role as director,
Mm-hmm.
which he would actually he would visit that world with Wednesday on Netflix.
Ah, yes,
Yeah.
yes.
So that's kind of like the Adams. It felt very much like Sonnenfeld, in my opinion. Wednesday.
Wednesday.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, wasn't he? He was a cinematographer, right?
I don't know if he was a cinematographer on that, but
But
he
just
was
in general,
previously.
like
yeah,
previously, yeah, that was
he,
his- yeah.
He worked a lot with the Coen brothers.
Right. Okay. yeah.
And that was a
Definitely
great
style.
marriage of creative forces.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
I know.
awesome.
Sorry, went off a tangent, but it's got a in terms of like Beetlejuice and sequels.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think the last time we had that, because I love dark humor, I'm into horror and stuff like that.
It's a lost art
Yeah.
now.
It really that
Yeah.
satire. It really is because you have to sort of explain the joke. You have
Yep.
to like
Right.
make sure you're not hurting anyone or protect. But the Adam's Family Values in terms of like satire that really sticks it to like. No one's safe in that movie, but even Michael Jackson. But I mean, it really goes after. Like I said, especially growing up in New York and knowing there are people who there's that classism thing. It
Yeah.
sticks it to it because Paul Rudnick's writing from a particular perspective, and I was like, I'm thankful for that. So.
Yeah. It's very good.
On a final note, I read
Yeah.
that Adam's Family Values is getting a 4K remaster
Ah,
Nice,
coming up
nice.
October.
You're
Very
big
cool,
on the physical media. I know.
Oh yes, I am definitely.
Yeah.
Cool, cool.
I love collecting my restorations.
Okay.
Those are my favorite.
Well, maybe we can discuss that in a later episode because we're just about out of time. And I just wanted to go around and do plugs. Like,
Okay.
Are there any projects you're working on? Any websites you want to mention? Ernst?
Well, since I just mentioned 4K mastering, I hope everyone visits Blu-ray.com. I don't really work there or represent them in any way, but they're a really good, reliable source in terms of like looking up Blu-rays and seeing if they're worth your money. Because sadly, not every Blu-ray transfer created equally. Yeah, sometimes they cheap out on the transfer, or there's difficulties and obstacles. The film reel might not be readily available, or they just don't want to spend the money.
Gotcha.
You know.
Cool. Okay. Cool. Anything for you? I know you're a busy man as well.
I am, yeah. I'm a programmer and script competition runner for the New York City Horror Film Festival, which will be coming up in December at Look, Dine, and Cinemas. And look for that. Look for more information on that. nychorrorfest.com. Come down and party with us.
That's cool. Count me in. And as for me, you can check out Under the Radar, new episodes on Slam Radio through SiriusXM every Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. And the video version of that episode will appear on Manhattan Neighborhood Network Mondays at 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Pacific. And as always, feel free to subscribe to the Under the Radar channel on YouTube and share the love. So I want to thank my guests today, Brian, Ernes. You guys are awesome, and you're always welcome.
I appreciate being here.
Of course, I appreciate you. And guys, I'm Randy Unger. This has been Under the Radar, bringing movies and people together, one frame at a time. We'll see you next time. Take care.